Tonight, we turn our attention to the world of medicine in ancient Egypt. This is not a story of pyramids or great conquests, but a quieter, more intimate look into how the Egyptians approached healing. Over 5,000 years ago, long before modern hospitals, physicians in Egypt were already developing a sophisticated system of medicine. They worked in temples, studied scrolls, mixed herbs, and treated the sick with both practical knowledge and spiritual care. For the Egyptians, illness was not only a physical condition, it was connected to balance, a harmony between body, spirit, and the natural world. This understanding formed the foundation of their healing practices, many of which were remarkably advanced for their time. Let's begin in the city of Memphis, an early capital of unified Egypt. Here, among the white limestone buildings and sacred courtyards, stood a structure known as the Per-Ankh, the House of Life. These temple complexes were more than religious spaces. They served as libraries, learning centers, and healing sanctuaries. Within the Per-Ankh, priest-physicians trained to diagnose illness, prepare remedies, and recite rituals intended to restore health. Their work was guided by two sources of knowledge: observation of the natural world and the sacred teachings passed down through temple scrolls. Two of the most important medical texts from ancient Egypt still survive. The first is the Ebers Papyrus, copied around 1550 BCE. The second, even older in origin, is the Edwin Smith Papyrus. The Ebers Papyrus is broad in scope. It contains over 700 remedies and describes conditions ranging from digestive problems to skin infections, fever, and mental disturbances. Some of the treatments may sound familiar today. Honey, used for its antibacterial properties, was applied to wounds. Garlic and onions were believed to improve circulation and immunity. Willow bark, which contains salicin, a natural precursor to aspirin, was used to relieve pain. Other treatments were more complex, involving combinations of herbs, minerals, animal fats, and oils. Remedies were written with careful detail, including measurements and timing, along with accompanying prayers or incantations. The Egyptians understood that healing was more than chemistry. It was also intention, belief, and ritual. While the Ebers Papyrus reflects a blend of natural and spiritual medicine, the Edwin Smith Papyrus offers something different: a glimpse into early clinical practice. This text is structured case by case. It outlines how to examine a wound, assess its severity, and decide whether or not it can be treated. There are descriptions of head injuries, spinal trauma, and broken bones. The language is clear and direct. It separates treatable conditions from those considered beyond help. One entry describes how to treat a dislocated jaw using manual repositioning. Another outlines how to apply bandages, immobilize limbs, and clean wounds with linen and resin. What makes the Edwin Smith Papyrus remarkable is its analytical tone. It does not rely on magic or divine intervention. It represents an early scientific approach based on observation and experience. And yet, even here, the spiritual was not excluded. Every action, whether applying a salve or wrapping a bandage, was done within a sacred context. Temples often included gardens where medicinal plants were cultivated. These gardens were carefully planned, containing plants known for their soothing, cleansing, or restorative effects. Among them were aloe for burns and skin conditions, juniper berries for digestive health, fenugreek to reduce inflammation, mandrake for its sedative qualities, and frankincense and myrrh for their antiseptic and aromatic properties. The air in these temple spaces would have been still, fragrant, and shaded, a quiet place where healing was approached with reverence and intention. It's important to remember that Egyptian medicine didn't separate the body from the spirit. Healing required restoring the whole person to balance. A patient might be given a herbal drink, but also an amulet for protection. They might undergo a massage and also receive a blessing from the priest. To heal was to align the self with the rhythms of the world, and the healer's role was not only to treat symptoms, but to remind the patient gently of the harmony they once held. In the ancient Egyptian world, healing was not always found in remedies alone. Sometimes it came through silence, through stillness, and through the quiet messages that arrived in dreams. One of the most fascinating forms of Egyptian healing was a practice known today as incubation, a sacred sleep ritual carried out inside temple sanctuaries. It was believed that if a patient could rest in the presence of a god, they might receive a vision, a dream that would reveal the cause of their illness, or even its cure. These sacred places were known as dream temples. While not as common as the Per Ankh, they were deeply respected, and they were most often dedicated to gods associated with knowledge, medicine, or transformation, such as Imhotep, Thoth, or Serhet. The ritual began with preparation. A person seeking healing would bathe, dress in white linen, and refrain from certain foods. They might fast or drink purifying teas made from lotus or mint. The goal was to approach the divine in a state of cleanliness, not only physical, but spiritual. Inside the temple, the patient would be brought to a quiet, enclosed chamber. It was cool, dark, and free from distractions. Candles flickered. The air carried the scent of burned frankincense. Soft chanting might be heard in the distance, a slow, rhythmic invocation to the god who watched over the room. The bed was often simple, a mat of woven papyrus or a stone bench lined with linen. Near the sleeper, a statue of the god would be placed, and beside the head, a priest might whisper the incantation, calling the god to enter the dream and guide the one who slept. This was not considered superstition. It was medicine, in a form we might now call psychological or spiritual therapy. Dreams were believed to be direct communication from the divine. They could reveal hidden imbalances in the body. They could warn, instruct, or soothe. And for many, the act of sleeping within the temple brought peace in itself. When the patient awoke, they would describe their dreams to a temple priest. The priest, trained in interpretation, would listen carefully. Sometimes the dream was thought to contain the cure. Other times it offered guidance, perhaps a ritual to perform, an offering to make, or a change in the patient's thoughts or habits. There are records of individuals reporting miraculous visions, of a god touching the place of pain, of snakes, sacred in Egypt, coiling around the body and removing illness, or of light emerging from the chest and dissolving discomfort. Whether symbolic or literal, these experiences had meaning, and in many cases they brought relief. The idea behind dream healing was simple. The mind and body are connected. If the spirit is restless, the body may fall ill, but if the spirit is guided, the body can begin to recover. It's a concept that continues to resonate. In our own time, we recognize how stress, fear, and imbalance can affect the body, and how calm, reassurance, and ritual can begin to restore it. In this, the Egyptians were not primitive, they were perceptive. They understood that rest is a form of healing, and that in the quiet space between waking and sleep, something sacred can begin. Outside the temple, life would continue as always. The sun would rise over the fields, boats would pass along the Nile. But for the one who had dreamt, something had shifted. They had touched the divine, not in noise, but in stillness. Not in ceremony, but in sleep. In ancient Egypt, healing was not simply a profession, it was a calling, and for those who practiced medicine in the temples, each day began not with urgency, but with ritual. A healer's life followed the same rhythms as the river and the sun. The work was structured, thoughtful, and guided by a sense of sacred responsibility. Let us step into one of those days, a day in the life of a healer priest in a temple somewhere near Abydos, perhaps, or Thebes. The names are lost, but the rhythm remains. The sun has not yet risen. The air is cool. In the quiet chambers of the temple, the healer wakes. His first act is not to see a patient or open a scroll, but to cleanse himself. In a small basin of cold water, he washes his hands, his face, and his feet. This is not only for hygiene, it is for purity. To approach the gods and the sick alike, the healer must be free from ritual impurity, calm in body and mind. He dresses in linen, plain and white. Then he walks silently toward the inner courtyard of the temple, where morning prayers are offered. The priests chant softly, welcoming the return of the sun. A small brazier burns fragrant resin, perhaps myrrh or kaifi, a sacred blend of spices and herbs. The healer does not rush. There is no haste in his movements. The day begins slowly, as it should. After the prayers, the healer enters the house of life, a space within the temple reserved for study, record-keeping, and healing. Scrolls are kept here, carefully rolled and stored in niches along the walls. Among them are copies of the Ebers Papyrus, the Hurst Papyrus, and other manuals of treatment. They are not used casually. Each text is sacred, a collection of experience, prayer, and observation passed down through generations. The healer selects a scroll and begins to review the case notes recorded the day before. The entries are written in black and red ink. Red was used for headings, symptoms, and the names of gods. Black for the body of the text. Each entry is clear. There are no assumptions, just what was seen, what was done, and what was hoped for. A patient arrives. He is an older man brought by his grandson who waits respectfully outside. The healer examines the man slowly. He looks for signs of fever. He checks the pulse, not as we would today, but by resting his fingers along the wrist, feeling for rhythm. He asks questions. He listens. The man complains of a heavy chest, of coughing through the night. The healer consults a remedy. It involves figs boiled in beer, mixed with carob, and sweetened with date syrup. The mixture is to be taken warm just after the sun reaches its height. Before preparing it, the healer offers a quiet invocation to Thoth, god of wisdom. Not dramatically, just a few words under his breath, acknowledging the ancient presence that guides his work. In the afternoon, the healer walks to the temple garden. It is sheltered from the heat by rows of date palms. Papyrus grows at the edges, and in the center are narrow beds of herbs, tended not by farmers, but by novices learning the practice. He picks mint, coriander, and juniper berries. He checks the state of the henna shrubs, the mandrake, and the aloe. Everything is noted. Not only what's needed, but what's thriving, and what must rest. Back in the healing room, another patient awaits. A woman who has lost sleep, not from pain, but from sorrow. Her husband has died. Her appetite is gone. The healer does not reach first for a remedy. He asks her to sit. He prepares a tea of blue lotus, a flower known to calm the heart and ease the mind. And while she drinks, he tells a quiet story of a God who grieved and who found peace in the stars. Not a cure, but a comfort. As the day ends, the healer returns to the house of life one last time. He writes down what was done, what was given, and what he observed. The ink dries as the shadows lengthen, and outside the sun sinks into the horizon behind the temple walls. The air is cooler now. The temple is still. The healer washes again, not from dirt, but from energy. He places the scrolls back in their niches. He nods to the statue of Imhotep, the great physician deity. And then he leaves, walking slowly through the stone corridor, his footsteps light, his hands empty, his mind calm. The story of medicine in ancient Egypt did not end with the temples. It did not fade with the passing of dynasties or with the shifting of gods and kings. Instead, it carried forward quietly, steadily, through scrolls, students, and distant lands. Even as time moved forward, the legacy of Egyptian healing continued to echo. When Greek scholars came to Egypt in the first millennium BCE, they found more than monuments and mysteries. They found knowledge, organized, written, and preserved. One of the most influential visitors was Hippocrates, often called the father of modern medicine. Though he lived centuries after Egypt's great temples had flourished, his methods, emphasizing careful observation, detailed record-keeping, and natural remedies, reflect principles already present in the Edwin Smith Papyrus. Likewise, Galen, the Roman physician whose theories shaped Western medicine for over 1,000 years, referenced Egyptian practices and ingredients in his own writings. Egypt's influence stretched beyond its borders, not through conquest or proclamation, but through documentation, through the quiet transmission of healing wisdom from temple to scroll, from scroll to student. The city of Alexandria, founded by Alexander the Great, became one of the most important centers of learning in the ancient world. Its library, legendary though lost, housed works from many civilizations, including Egyptian medical texts. It was here that ancient Egyptian, Greek, and Eastern traditions merged. Scholars studied anatomy, surgery, herbalism, and philosophy side by side. The physicians of Alexandria performed dissections, catalogued remedies, and refined earlier knowledge into new forms. Egyptian ideas, once confined to temple walls, now moved through the Mediterranean world, translated, adapted, and remembered. Some Egyptian practices lasted not just centuries but millennia. Honey remained a staple in wound care. Garlic and onions continued to be recognized for their medicinal properties. Castor oil, mint, coriander, and aloe vera survived in folk medicine and formal pharmacopoeia alike. Even the practice of combining spiritual care with physical treatment persisted. In many cultures, healing remained an act of balance, one that cared for both the body and the inner life. Perhaps more than any individual remedy, what endured most was Egypt's approach to healing. It was a system based on attentiveness, to symptoms, to signs, to the patient's story. It was grounded in observation of cause and effect, of seasons and cycles, and it was supported by a quiet reverence for the forces beyond human control. Whether they were called gods, nature, or simply balance, this worldview, practical yet spiritual, resonates even now. In every waiting room where a healer listens, in every hand that prepares a remedy with care, in every quiet voice that speaks comfort in times of illness, the spirit of ancient Egyptian medicine lives on. And so we close this journey where it began, with stillness, with care, and with a recognition that healing in every age is both science and art, a sacred rhythm passed from hand to hand, from temple to scroll to memory. Sleep well.